Hi, I'm Megan, and welcome to today's live reading of Montana Delta Rodeo Cowboy by Debra Parmley, presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Join me. Chapter 1. I'm sending you out west to Montana. Emma Smith's boss, Clement Oakley, Esquire, spoke from behind her, startling Emma from the letter she was typing, and she jumped. She hadn't heard him leave his office. What? Emma shook her head, thinking she hadn't heard him right. You're sending me somewhere? He'd never done that before, or even talked about sending her somewhere. Yes, to Montana. Her jaw dropped. She'd heard him right. He was sending her to Montana. Why? The lawyer presented the airline ticket with a flourish and placed it on her desk. I decided you deserved a getaway. He corrected himself. A holiday. He smiled. You've been a great secretary. Getaway? What? Then she realized he'd spoken in the past tense. Been a great secretary? What does he mean, been? Oh no. She needed this job. Are you firing me? She barely got the words out as her cheeks heated with embarrassment. She'd never been fired before. What would she tell her family, her friends? Rent on her apartment had just gone up. She had her car payment, insurance, and credit card bills. She couldn't be getting fired now. What will I do? Her thumb reached for the place on her other thumb where her nail polish had started to chip away and dug at it, a nervous habit she sometimes wasn't aware she was doing. No, of course not, he shook his head. Don't be silly. She paused her thumb from the destructive progress. Happy birthday! The joviality of his voice sounded forced. You do have a birthday coming up. Oh, her eyebrows rose in surprise. I wasn't aware he knew when my birthday was. He's never mentioned it before. She'd worked for him for 3 years, and this seemed out of character for him. But she didn't want to appear ungrateful. What a generous gift, much more than a typical card and fresh flowers. How odd, though. And never acknowledging her birthday even once, now suddenly he was gifting her this gift? Well, thank you, she said, amazed. She glanced at the ticket. The flight to Bozeman, Montana left early Monday morning. Today was Friday. Just 2 full days to get ready? Why such short notice? What if I'd had other plans for my birthday? He hadn't asked if she was free to go or wanted to. She stared at the destination. Bozeman, Montana. She knew nothing about Montana. Why Montana? She asked. What's in Montana? Big sky, he said, big mountains, wide open spaces. He pointed to the ticket. That will take you there. I expect to see some great pictures when you return. Okay, she said, picking up the ticket. She looked back at him. This is incredibly generous. Two more things, he said, shrugging her comment aside. That bag over by the door is yours. Take it with you. She looked over at the expensive dark brown leather suitcase by the door, which she hadn't noticed before, and her eyes widened. Wow, thank you. The second thing, he said, don't make any hotel reservations or invite anyone else to join you. She wrinkled her forehead as she looked at him. Why not? I've made other arrangements. I have a man and a driver who will meet you at the airport and take you to your private lodging. This is a personal retreat just for you, no one else. You don't have to go to all that trouble, she said. I can book my own room. Just follow my instructions. His voice turned stern. Enjoy your trip, but no hotels on your own and no companions. He was acting strange, intense, stern, generous. You have a relaxing private place to stay. My surprise just for you, no company, he said. Promise. Yes, okay, she agreed. He was being generous, and his conditions weren't a big deal. She'd take books to read. Her to-be-read stack by the bed had grown so tall she'd moved it to the floor, where it had continued to grow until now it looked ready to topple over. A weekend with nothing she had to do sounded good, instead of her usual routine of crossing off her to-do list and never getting anything done. I'm going to be out of touch this weekend, but you have everything you need. All arrangements have been made. The messaging service will handle calls, and I've already turned it on for this afternoon so you can take off early. There's nothing more that needs to be done today. Emma was ready to argue with him. She knew exactly what needed to be done today and next week. He held up a hand to stop her before she could speak. The world won't end if we both take the weekend off, and I'm sure you have a lot to do before you fly out. All right, Emma said. She glanced down at her desk calendar where projects and due dates were listed, some in black, some in red. A small planner in her purse corresponded with this calendar. If she didn't have to work on her vacation, she wouldn't need to pack her planner. It might be kind of nice not to need to look at it until she got back. You can catch up on everything back here in the office after your holiday. I was in the middle of typing the letter to leave it, he interrupted, just as it is. How strange. It wasn't like her to leave a task unfinished. Okay, still adjusting to the change in her usually quiet, boring job, she stood to get her purse and her coat, leaving the letter as it was. She reached for her dirty coffee cup with the yellow happy face on it that said smile. She needed to take it to the kitchen and wash it. Janitorial services can get that, he said. I pay them enough. His usual tone was back, along with his attitude toward money. He made plenty and made sure everyone knew it. She wondered, not for the first time, he made. As she went over to the leather suitcase and bent down to pick it up, giving it a closer look, she noted how expensive it had to be. The leather was soft in her hand. This was one thing she wouldn't have bought for herself. Wealthy people were so different from the blue collar and white collar people she'd grown up with. Hard workers, all. Finish what you start, her dad always said. Those words stuck with her now. Walking away from unfinished work wasn't easy, even if her boss said the letter could wait. He watched her in silence. Whatever was going on in his thoughts, he wasn't sharing. Holding the suitcase, she paused by the door. Thank you again for the birthday gifts, she said. I appreciate them. You're welcome, my dear. He gave her a great big smile. Smiling back, she turned and went out, closing the door behind her. Her birthday was 2 weeks away. She'd be back by then and could still celebrate the real day with her noisy family at the old homestead, which had been in her family for 3 generations. A favorite cake, and usually homemade ice cream, was the tradition which her grandma had begun. She always had strawberry cake with buttercream icing and strawberries on top, along with strawberry ice cream. Grandpa Smith used to say she would turn into a strawberry one day, which had always made her giggle. He had been gone for 7 years, passing just before she'd gotten her driver's license. She'd regretted that he'd missed seeing her drive her first car or graduate high school. When her birthday came around, she always thought of her grandpa. Emma knew her mother would prepare her favorite meal, as she did for each of her 3 children on their birthdays. That, too, was a family tradition. Evan, her oldest brother, would request coconut cake with coconut icing and didn't care what ice cream flavor went with it. Ernest would ask for carrot cake with cream cheese icing and vanilla ice cream. Never store-bought, the family birthday cakes were made just the way Emma's grandmother had made them from scratch. Emma wouldn't have missed a family birthday celebration for the world, especially her own. She'd be back home in time. This was a quick trip, like her boss said, a short, restful vacation. She'd never taken a vacation or stayed out of town for even one night by herself. Strange how the birthday gift was now shifting her whole world, making her pivot. She was a planner, not a fly by the seat of your pants kind of woman. On her way home, she would already be making a list, would be making lists in her head of what she needed to do before leaving. Unlike her office job, she would not be leaving things undone in her home. Emma made it to her car, a small white Toyota Corolla with beige sheets, unlocked it, placed her purse and the new suitcase on the passenger seat, and then slid behind the wheel. Briefly, she thought of calling her mother, but it was always best not to do that while driving. Her mother would make a huge fuss about her only daughter traveling alone to another state. No one could make such a fuss as Olivia Smith when she latched onto something. The boys could do just about anything, but let Emma go off on her own and her mother would start fussing. When she went off to college, her experience had been different from her brother's. Evan and Ernie simply piled their stuff into their cars when it was time and headed off alone. No fuss had been made, though their mother kept dabbing her eyes with the tissue. Setting Emma up in the college dorm, her parents had driven her and carried things into her new room before taking her out to dinner. For Jim Smith, her father, this was one way he had shown that he loved her. He'd worked hard to provide for them, and treating her to dinner was his way of sending her off with love. She always valued time with her father, though her mother took up most of her attention, as had always been the way. College expanded Emma's world, loosening her mother's reach and control, though getting a degree in women's studies landed Emma in classrooms of mostly women, another kind of isolation. She hadn't thought through what kind of job she might get afterward and had been lucky to land her job at the law office of Clement Oakley Esquire in Dayton, Ohio. As she hurried home to catch up on laundry and start packing, she decided to put off telling her parents about the trip until she'd done all of her laundry and packed her bags. She knew her mother would be on the phone for at least an hour, no matter how much Emma needed to get ready. She also wanted to bask in her excited feeling about the trip before anything negative was said about her going. Mother would be negative. She pushed thoughts of her mother aside. What an amazing day this had turned out to be. Emma couldn't believe how lucky she was. These kinds of things never happened to her, but now they had. Finally, in her pajamas and sitting in bed under a warm quilt her grandmother had made, she dialed her mother. Her mother picked up. Hello, Emma, is everything all right? Yes, Mom, everything is fine. You usually don't call this late. I've been busy since I got off work and now I finally have a minute, Emma said. What's going on? Her mother said. My boss gave me a really nice birthday gift today. It's not your birthday yet, her mother said. Did he get the date wrong? I didn't ask that. He surprised me. You'll never guess what he gave me. What did he give you? A trip to Montana. What? That's an expensive gift. And a new leather suitcase. It would have been better if he had given you a bonus. Of course, Mother would say that. She's always about money. Well, he didn't, so I'm going to enjoy what he gave me. Why such an extravagant gift? And when is this trip? I fly out Monday. You won't be here on your birthday? I'll be back before then. Have him reschedule. No, he's shutting down the office for the weekend and has given me time off. I can't ask him to reschedule. Now, think, Emma, her mother said with that tone Emma disliked. This doesn't give either of your brothers enough time to arrange to accompany you. You should be more considerate of your brothers. There it was, so predictable. I'm not going to ask either of them to go with me. Asking one of her brothers to go with her was ridiculous, even if she wanted to, which she didn't. They both had jobs and girlfriends, lives of their own. I don't like the idea of you flying alone. I'll be on a plane full of people, and I don't need a babysitter. I'm a grown woman. Is this boss of yours going with you? Her mother's voice took on a suspicious tone. No, this is a vacation just for me, a retreat, and no one else is invited. Well, her mother huffed, you needn't be rude about it. She never likes it when I put a boundary up of any kind. I really need a vacation from her. I'm just stating a fact, Mother, Emma said. Usually, stating a fact did not get you into trouble, something she'd learned working for an attorney. Mr. Oakley set this up as a private retreat vacation. I don't like it, her mother said. Well, I'm excited about the trip, Emma said, and I do need a vacation, so I'm going to enjoy it. Are you coming over before you leave? Her mother asked. I'll fix dinner and invite your brother. I'll invite your brothers. Not for dinner, Emma said, but I could drop by on my way to the bank tomorrow to see you and Dad. The last thing she was going to do was endure a family dinner with all four of them expressing their opinions on her upcoming trip. I've got to get some sleep, Mom. It's been a long day. Well, then I'll see you tomorrow. We'll talk about this again. Good night. Good night. Emma hung up the phone, vowing not to spend any more time than necessary visiting her parents, since her mother wasn't supportive of her vacation and happy for her. Why can't she be happy for me? I really need a vacation from all the negativity. Monday, Emma boarded the plane, clutching the paper ticket with excitement. She'd printed it out as a keepsake. The ticket eventually would go into her memory box where she collected things to make a scrapbook. On the plane, she sat in the aisle seat, wishing she had the window seat. Maybe the plane won't be full and I can switch seats. A tall man stood in the aisle, clearing his throat to get her attention. I have the seat next to you, he said. Oh, sorry, she blushed and stood to step into the aisle. No problem, he said, and moved into the seat and sat. A mother, wrestling a baby, sat in the seat across the aisle from Emma. She pulled out a bottle to feed the baby. Emma hadn't realized you could fly with babies, but the mother acted as if this was nothing unusual. A large man appeared next to Emma and pointed to the window seat, indicating he needed to be there. She and the man next to her stood and moved out to let him in. Once he was seated, she wondered how he squeezed into his seat. The plane took off, and Emma wished again that she had the window seat. The tall man next to her was having to lean her way because the other man took up more room than his seat allowed, and he put the armrest up to give him more room, which put him over into the middle seat more. Neither man looked comfortable. Close quarters, the man next to her said. We might as well get to know each other. He held out his hand with a smile. Brett Collier. Emma Smith, she said, reaching out to shake his hand. They shook and smiled at each other. Sardines, the large man said. They squeeze us in here like sardines. He turned his head away from them and looked out the window. Guess he's not interested in introducing himself or making much conversation, Emma thought, which was fine with her. Headed to Bozeman? Brett asked, or beyond? Bozeman, she said. Me too. Work trip. It was a one-way flight, so it made sense that they were headed to the same place. What do you do? She asked. I'm an analyst, he said. And you? Just a secretary, she said. Before they could speak further, her phone rang, and she looked to see who was calling. Mother. She answered. Hello, Mom, she said. The plane is getting ready to take off, so I have to put my phone in airplane mode. Be safe, her mother said. Call me as soon as you land. Yes, I will, Emma said. Love you, bye. Love you, bye, her mother said. Emma hung up the phone and then set it on airplane mode. Mothers, Brett said. They always worry. True, she said. Mine worries so much that she expects a phone call from me every day. Guilt you if you don't, I'm guessing, he said. Yep, she gave a nod. Sure does. It wasn't going to be much of a retreat if she had to call her mother every day. She'd already decided she wouldn't be. Once her mother knew she'd arrived at the retreat safely, Emma would take a break from the daily calls and turn off her phone. She would curl up with a good book and order in dinner. The flight attendant handed Emma a pair of earbuds. Thank you, Emma said. She hooked them into the plug at her seat and selected a music compilation of soft piano music to listen to. Closing her eyes, she tried to tune out everything and mostly succeeded as she relaxed to the music. Brett tapped her shoulder when the flight attendant stopped to ask if they wanted drinks and snacks. Emma took off her earbuds and accepted a cranberry juice and biscuit cookie. She drank half the juice before closing her eyes again to listen to the music, forgetting the cookie. She was tired as she hardly had any sleep last night between the late phone call with her mother right before bed, which had gone on longer than an hour and had felt like an interrogation, and her excitement about the trip. Nothing her mother had said had changed Emma's enthusiasm. If anything, it made her want to get away even more. She'd done a quick search on the internet for Montana before she'd called her mother and was hoping to see the beautiful scenery and wildlife. Emma dozed, finally able to relax enough to do so. A message that the plane would be landing came over the speaker, so she put away the earbuds. Brett was talking to the man by the window about football. He turned to her and said, Better finish your juice and put your tray table up. Realizing he was right, she finished her juice and gave the cup to the attendant coming down the aisle to collect trash. She tucked the cookie in her purse. Brett gave her a smile but said nothing. She was curious about him and would have asked him questions, but she didn't want him to know she'd be alone in Montana. It wasn't wise to let strangers know she was traveling alone. Her mother had lectured her, and it was one thing she agreed with her mother on. If she didn't call her mother the minute the plane landed, her phone would start ringing. So she waited to turn it back on. The plane landed, and then she exited the plane, entered the airport, and headed for the baggage carousel. Brett followed her off the plane and headed for the baggage claim area as well, but that didn't feel creepy, just friendly. He stopped beside her, and they waited for their bags. When her two bags came around, he helped her by lifting each one off the carousel and sitting it on the floor beside her. Her big backpack looked like it didn't belong with the nice leather suitcase. Where are you headed? Brett asked. Maybe we could share a taxi. He was probably only trying to save money, but she had to tell him no. Thanks, but I already have a ride, she said, her attention on turning her phone back on. Maybe we could get together later, he said, and she looked up at him. For coffee or breakfast? May I have your number? Her mother's messages were now coming through, one after the other. Emma frowned. 5 of them. This is ridiculous. The warnings her mother had given her were in her mind as she stood beside the handsome man who wanted her number. He was really a neighbor from the plane, not a guy who approached her from out of the blue. Should she say yes? Before she could answer, a man approached her from behind. Miss Emma Smith? Yes. She turned to face a man with a deep voice, wondering if he was the driver Mr. Oakley had hired. He was tall, 6'5" to her 5'6", and he stood towering over her. Broad-shouldered, with dark hair showing traces of gray, he appeared strong and fit for his age. She looked at his crooked nose, wondering if his nose had been broken at some point. While she checked him out, he sent Brett a look, which made him back away. Enjoy Montana, Brett said with a wave. Well, we won't be exchanging numbers. Emma was a little disappointed. She'd been tempted to meet him for coffee to see if anything further was possible, despite her mother's warnings. But she needed to get on with her vacation and get that much needed rest and relaxation, alone, as Mr. Oakley had made her promise. She was tired after the flight, not ready for a date, even a simple coffee date. The tall man moved with a smoothness she wouldn't have expected in such a muscle-bound man, capturing her attention away from Brett and any regrets she might have. He held out his hand. "Nathan Smalls," he said. "Your boss, Clement Oakley, sent me. I'll drop you at your lodging." She grinned. Small he was not. Emma reached out her hand to shake his. "Emma," she said, though he already knew that. "Yes, ma'am." He smiled at her as they shook, and then picked up her bags. "Ready?" Emma nodded and began walking beside Mr. Smalls, who made her feel small next to him. She dialed her mother as they walked. "Hey, Mom," she said the minute her mother picked up. "I'm at the airport and my driver is here, so we're heading to my lodging next. I'll call you when we get there." For a change, she hadn't let her mother get a word in. "I'm glad you made it safely," her mother said. "How was your flight?" "Tell you later. Gotta go." Emma hung up her phone. Mother wouldn't like that. Emma hurried to keep up with Mr. Smalls, who wasn't moving slow, and set her phone to vibrate. They left the airport area with him looking around as if scanning for trouble. What's he looking for? She found herself looking where he was looking to spot who or what he was looking for. His smile had fled, replaced by seriousness that made him look intimidating. Clearly, he was in work mode. Outside, she thought he'd hail a taxi as he headed toward the taxi stand, but instead, a long, dark limo pulled up in front of him and he guided her toward it. "That must be our ride." She glanced at him. "He acts like he's trying to protect me, but why? I'm no celebrity with a bodyguard and limo. I'm just Emma. This whole thing is strange. This trip is unexpected, hard to get used to, and strange." He guided her to the limo, waited as she got in, said something to the driver, which she couldn't hear, and then got in beside her, shutting the door. Automatic locks clicked down. She could feel her phone vibrating in her purse, which sat on her lap. Putting it on the seat next to her, she could see many messages coming in from her mother and chose to ignore them. When she got to her destination, she would then call her mother and let her know where she was. Mr. Smalls was watching the rearview mirror and driver. "I'm supposed to be enjoying this limo ride. Mr. Oakley meant this as a treat, some pampering for me." She took in the limo, trying to enjoy the new experience. A rental car would have been fine, then I'd have a vehicle to drive around. What if my private lodging is out in the sticks with no way to get around? She wasn't used to fancy on her brown bag lunch budget. Eating out anywhere was a treat. Sometimes her boss would order a working lunch from a nice restaurant, often Italian. Emma glanced around the interior of the dark limo and ran her hand across the soft black leather upholstery. How easy it would be to sink into the seat and fall asleep. How tempting. She was tired and badly needed sleep, but a nap wasn't going to happen until after she reached her destination and was safely in her room. She needed to see where she was going. Which was where, exactly? She still had no idea, and that gave her an odd feeling. "Where exactly are we headed?" she asked Nathan. Surely he can tell me now. He was frowning at his phone as he read a text message. He didn't answer her, but texted the person on the phone back, the frown not leaving his face. Whoever is texting him is not making him happy. She pulled out her phone to call Mr. Oakley and thank him again for the trip. Maybe he'd finally tell her where she'd be staying. She started to look up his number. In her peripheral vision, she saw Mr. Small's whole demeanor changed. He called someone on his cell phone, and when they picked up, he said, "What happened?" in a quiet voice before he sat listening, still as a stone, the tension in his body clear. "Something is wrong." She glanced down at her phone as Mr. Oakley's number, ready to push dial, and then pushed it and lifted the phone to her ear. Mr. Small said, "When did it happen?" He listened again. "Thanks, mate," he said, hung up and turned to face her. Change of plans. The ringing phone at her ear went to voicemail, and she heard her boss say to leave a message. "What?" she asked Mr. Smalls, confused. "What do you mean?" Mr. Smalls grabbed her cell phone out of her hand. "Who are you calling?" "Mr. Oakley," she said. Damn it. He disconnected the call. Why was he so upset? He clenched his fist around her phone, lowered his window, and tossed her phone out the window. "Hey," she yelled as her phone went flying away from the limo. "That was mine." "What the hell?" Closing the window, glancing briefly at the limo driver who was watching them in the rearview mirror and listening, Mr. Smalls turned to face her. Your boss is dead, he spoke, his voice low and calm. She gasped. Mr. Oakley, dead? The limo driver met her wide eyes in the rearview mirror.